we talk to writers quite a lot, and some of them do still have to handwrite before they go on the computer, some go straight to the PC entirely, where you have to write it.
Quite a lot of it. I mean, I do write stuff, and if I'm under pressure for deadline, then you can get into a zone where I can write straight onto PC. Of course, that does help. But on the other hand, I find that typing up notes, you immediately do an edit as you're writing stuff up. So it's a bit of it's a bit of swings and roundabouts really, which is best. But I think in the end, if I'm 3 months out from deadline, I will write straight onto the PC because fundamentally that will be quicker as long as I'm writing the right stuff. It will be quicker to do it that way. But after I write the whole thing out, it's James. I think Jim Herbert still does that. Writes it all out in notebooks, the whole lot, and before it goes onto the PC. I don't know who else does that. But I don't think he does his own typing up either. He's sold the odd book more than I have, so he's probably afford other people.
Well, that's an interesting thing. Obviously, the rewriting thing that you're talking about, just isn't there a risk there as you rewrite that you lose momentum, you lose what you're trying to?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I'm typing up from notes onto the PC, then once I've done that, I won't go back and read it again. I don't actually like to read my work, particularly until I've finished the whole lot or finished a major segment, then I won't go back. You absolutely do. And also, you can edit the life out of something if you're not careful, I think. That's my excuse for not doing enough editing, by the way. You can kill the spirit of it. You can make a fast-paced battle into a slow-paced battle, something which is so choreographed it's like a dance, and that's no good because battles are chaotic. So I'll edit them for spelling and grammar. Grammar, not a big strong point of mine. I hold up my hand. But what I won't do is probably change the actions, because I think one of the things about battle is that it is just utter chaos. So I write from here to here because I know who's alive at the front, who's alive at the end, and then what happens in the middle happens in the middle, and it's normally a big mess. But that's fine because it's not like they're all flip.
So you're not like these authors chapter by chapter. Chapter 1 we're going to do this, chapter 2 we're going to do this. Until you get there.
No, because I changed my mind so much about how things are going to go as I'm going through. I wrote actually in Prism a little while ago about the different ways in which I've planned books, but I'm not really a big planner. The only time I had to plan the same was when I was doing the second Ascendance book and I was stuck. Then I had to go and plan because I could not work out where the hell I was, and so the only way to do it was to go pick the idea apart and then put it back together again and hope that it then worked. We'll probably go on to how much help I had.
Yeah.
But so I don't really. So what I like to know, again, like in a battle, I like to know who's there at the start, who's there at the end, and what they've achieved in the middle, and then I kind of write it. But it's a high-risk strategy because you can get really stuck in lots, and there are times when I get stuck in lots in books and have to go away and do something else. So far it's worked for me, but there will be a day I expect where you end up with a desert in the middle of your book and you've no idea what you're going to do. I'm not looking forward to that day very much.
Yeah. I mean, you've spent quite a long time honing your craft. Would you eventually consider being an editor?
I don't think so. I don't consider myself to be an editor or a teacher. I'm not active enough to be an editor, I don't think, actually, but if I'm absolutely honest, then that's because editors have a really tough job. And I'm always amazed how much my editor will pick up stuff that I think is really good. He will come back and he will make extremely smart comments. Now, that may be because I'm too close to what it is that I'm writing, I suspect that's the case. But I think you need a different eye if you're an editor. I don't know, because I'm not one, I've absolutely no idea. But I edit my own books from my own perspective, but to be an editor and edit someone else's books, I don't know. So I don't tend to read other people's books, pre-publication, except on particularly special occasions. So that isn't something I would want to pursue.
And again, that's another point. Do you read fantasy when you're not writing?
Really? I like to try and keep up with the new stuff that's coming out. I've read one of Joe's books, and The Name of the Wind apparently is a great book, and I should read that, so I should read that. And so I do recommendations and stuff, so I read that sort of thing. But I only tend to read one. So I've only read one George Martin book, and I've only read one of Joe's, but I do tend to read the others. And I may well only read one Patrick Rothfuss, and I've read Richard Morgan's latest. I've read that, but I may not read another one because there is so much. And in the end, there's that. It's a bit of a busman's holiday for a start because you know, you write fantasy all day. I don't really want to read it. I'm reading Evelyn Waugh at the moment in the evening. It's just lovely. It's fantastic. It's evocative of its period. It's beautifully written. And that's a very nice diversion from fantasy. So I still love to read. But there's a couple of other risks with reading too much fantasy, particularly when you're writing it, is that you'll come across ideas and you'll think, bastard, what a good idea, now I can't use it, or you'll unconsciously start to use something, and that's particularly dangerous. I think that's to be avoided at all costs. I did find actually, and this is sort of an admission, but it all went out, I can assure you, is that when I was writing The Ascendance of Esteria, I read a draft of it and thought, dear God, they're speaking lines out of Lord of the Rings, and they were. Because I was big into the films, so I watched the films quite a lot and watched the DVD highlights and that sort of stuff. I thought, Christ, look at that, that's one of Aragorn's lines, it's got to go. And so I ended up going through it really, really in the middle of huge detail. And I had no idea what I was doing. And it just points out how subconsciously you can pick stuff up and give it out, and that's not all. So I'm very careful now. I tend not to read any fantasy when I'm actually drafting that.
Quite a few authors say that.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, well let's think about that then, Joe, in terms of mentors.
Yeah.
Because obviously I did Simon, you were a big man for.
Well, I've worked with Simon Spanton ever since he's been my editor for all my books so far, for my novels that is. So I've worked with him since 1998, effectively, when they accepted Dawn Thief. So that's 10 years now, and we have a great relationship because he's able to be. I mean, he's an old school chap. It's bizarre how it all came about. It made it very, very hard for him to buy the books because clearly, if he buys a book from an old school friend of his and it bombs, then it's look, you've done something. You're publishing. He makes books. Leave the company. So when he wanted to actually, when he thought it was good enough, I then had to wait for weeks and weeks and weeks when I thought I might get a publishing deal while every other Tom, Dick and Harry had gone out ready. So it went up to Malcolm Edwards and it went to the sub-editors, different genre editors, went to all sorts of people to read. And it was a really, really nervous time actually. Because if they'd have said no, then nothing he can do about it. But fortunately, they all supported his view, which is good. And knowing him so as well as I do also meant that when it came to editing, he could be completely honest and he knew, because he knows me that well enough to know how to get stuff across. And normally just needs to come out and say it, so I've got quite a thick skin. And he has said some pretty harsh things in his time when he's had to. I mean, that's what an editor should do. You can't be afraid of, or shouldn't. I wouldn't like to think that any editor would need to be afraid of someone like me, because I want them to help make my book better. That's what they should be allowed to do. And I'm able to say to him anything he edits, to say, I don't agree with you, I'm going to go my way, because in the end it's my name on the front of the book, so you've got to keep in mind that it's your book. But he's got a sharp mind, he's a very experienced editor, so he knows how to make things better, he knows how to increase the pace, and he can tell me that there's too much of this, and should. He never said do this, do that, ever. There's never any instruction. It's all about considering this and considering that, and that's a good way. It just makes you think. I reckon probably 85% of the time I agree with you. And I think if you get too close to the work, well I do, and you can't see where you're making errors. He's a very, very good editor. He does well. He's got a listening, whatever. Big long list of very good titles under his belt. Listening sounds bad, but
Okay, other mentors, David Kennedy.